What up, fam? This is Anthony Dream Johnson, president of the Manosphere, CEO of the Redman Group, founder of 21 Studios, the 21 Convention, the 22 Convention, and other interesting stuff I make up as I go along over the course of 13 years now. Today, we have a very special episode of the Redman Group, episode 100. Technically, we've actually had more than 100 episodes because we don't usually count the live ones at the 21 Convention as part of the main series, but officially and formally, this is episode 100, a big milestone. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about the history and future of the Redman Group, the different panelists and topics we've had on the show, and all that kind of fun jazz. And together as a group, we're going to talk about the future. Both as panelists, we have 6 of us on today, including myself, maybe more actually. And we'll go from there. So joining me on today's episode 100, special super duper anniversary edition, is DDJ, the one and only Doomsday Jesus is back. More badass and fresher than ever. Ken Curry from solidman.com. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist and has been on the show many, many times at this point, both in person and online. And you can find him at solidman.com. Steve the Dean Williams, you guys know from the Red Pill Mindset. And of course, he's at themanmindset.com, host of the show and everything else like that. And Hunter Drew from thefamilyalpha.com. And we just got Evolve Phil, Phil Foster. You guys can find him on Twitter, I think at Evolve Phil. If not, I'll put the link in the bio. Hunter, by the way, is founder of Family Alpha, as well as the co-founder of the Fraternity of Excellence, sponsor of the show. You can sign up through a link in the description, and I think you can use a coupon code RMG for 10% off. But look in the description for details on that. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me. I'm really excited to talk today and not die from coronavirus. How's everybody doing?
We're good.
Talk to me about what you've had going on, guys, before we get more into the RMG history and future. DDJ, you've been gone for a while. What's going on, bro? Everybody's been bitching at me, like, where's DDJ? Bring him back. I'm like, busy guy, man.
That's funny. Actually, I decided that I needed to do more than just make videos and kind of sit behind the scenes. So I helped form a law firm in Denver that is focused on helping men through family law, as well as fighting false DV allegations and doing constitutional civil rights. And so be looking for us to be possibly shortly filing a lawsuit against the city and county of Denver and challenging sanctuary cities. I've also been working with what I believe is the #1 law firm in the country representing men, which is the law office of Melissa Isaac. And I've been working with her pretty closely as far as trying to do the same thing as well, because she's been doing it for, I want to say, like 10, 15 years. And she's probably the premier family law attorney in the country right now. So we've been taking some cases around the country where she's barred and where the other attorneys are barred, so we can start helping men. And so that's part of the reason I've been offline, because I've been burning the candle at both ends to try to get these things set up. Because while I think that making the videos is important, I also believe going out there and actually doing something in addition is just as important. And since I have the skill set, I might as well use it.
Fuck yeah. Welcome back. Ken, what you been up to, man? I see you got a new updated podcast background here. Bo, Solid Man branding, looks like a new microphone. Guys, getting the whole works, man. What's going on?
Well, yeah, that's part of what my world is, trying to advance and develop and expand into more of an online presence. And that's been a big thing. Definitely, I got my my local practice is really working. We're going to see how all this coronavirus stuff actually makes a difference with meeting with people. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it's good to kind of be online and trying to figure a lot of this stuff out. Hunter was helping me with a couple things this last week, just trying to figure this stuff out. So hopefully it's going to grow and build, and got a lot of plans for this whole online stuff for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I know you mentioned that to me a while ago, a few months ago, and I'm happy to see you moving forward with that. And how Hunter helping you out too. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
He's better.
All right.
Phil, what you been up to, man? Haven't talked in a while.
Yeah, it's just been pretty busy as of late. I'm actually out of town this weekend, so I'm down in San Antonio out of the DFW area, and I'm just getting some things settled, and just been working real hard. We're getting ready to move this next month, and getting ready to launch the brand that I've been working on and slowly moving towards day by day incrementally. Still tightening up the website and getting all that ready as far as hormones, nutrition and training and whatnot. So just kept me really busy, obviously, for a while. And yeah, you're right. We haven't talked in a little while, so it's good to see you guys and see you still kicking ass. 100th episode or 100.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you. Hard work on your part, man. And it's just great to see you carrying on and putting your foot forward, man. It's great. Good shit.
Yeah, I love the advice you've told me several times. Keep your foot on the gas pedal, man. You're just like, I can hear you like cheering me on, like yelling it at me, like keep your foot on the fucking gas pedal.
That's the only way to go, man. Fucking intensity, right? You got to have it. And there's so many friggin' haters and shade throwers in this world, and when you're doing something great, especially for your fellow man, there's no other way to be than to be intense with it and just keep fucking going, man. Screw the rest, man.
Yeah.
They're all trash.
Yeah, it's amazing how much hate you can get, man, for wanting to help men and fathers and even women. Obviously, that was a huge shit show.
You know what though? Here's the thing: screams of haters make great theme music. So hashtag cut lives matter.
Yeah, man.
Another big announcement I got for myself is finalized all my court stuff with the ex-wife, and I finally finished up that and came away with full custody of my daughter.
Oh, wow.
Congratulations, man. That's a big win.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I would clap, but I don't have a microphone. Fuck yeah, man.
So that had me tied up a little bit as well. And, but it worked out for the best. And, she's living with me and I could ask for no more. A lot of guys out there, they say, oh, you can't do it. It's impossible. And I'm here to tell you, there's definitely ways you can work the system to your advantage. You just got to learn how to play the game a little bit,
How many years did that take, if you don't mind me asking?
So I've been divorced from that lady for 11 years, and I positioned myself in the initial divorce proceedings to where no child support, 50-50 custody, and then just slowly, it's kind of like Space Invaders. You know how they come at you? You just got to play this incremental game for some time and give them enough rope to hang themselves. So it actually took start to finish 8.5 years.
Wow.
So the ground war, it's like horse races, like a horse race, the jockey's whipping the horse. And that's kind of like what you got to do in this situation is you have to whip your racehorse just enough to where it's going to run hard, but not peter out. And it's a game of money, obviously, and it was a very costly game, but it's worth it in the end. I mean, they're your children. If you got a basket case ex-wife like I do, you have no option but to do what's best for your children first and foremost, because once again, that's your legacy. And, we can get off into that all day long. But the thing is you got to mitigate damage and figure out ways to get them to hang themselves. And that's what I basically did.
Well, and when you're a parent too, I think the most important thing is that it's your children, right? It's your family. It's your personal legacy and it's your responsibility. And I think it's interesting because there's a lot of fathers out there, and I'm not kicking anybody under the bus. I'm just saying, but there's a lot of fathers out there who they become fathers and they don't put their children as their priority. They don't put their family as a priority. So, my hat's absolutely off to you. Or in this case, my sombrero because of my avatar. And good fight, man. Congratulations, well deserved.
Thank you very much.
That is amazing, man. The dedication and fortitude and persistence to go 8.5 years. Never mind the preceding couple. I'm sure that was nasty too, working out standard divorce. But that's amazing. That's a really long. That's a fucking decade basically invested into this, and who knows how much money. I know I have a personal friend who dropped over $50,000 fighting for custody for his child. Mm-hmm. And that was over the course of like 3 years, not even.
Absolutely. So, yeah. It's a nasty game, and you just gotta learn to roll with the pigs almost in a sense to come out on the other side clean and win. And that's just the nature of the beast,
Yeah. Jesus, man. Steve, what do you got going on, man? Hey, welcome back to the show. I know you had the Red Pill mindset the other night. That was exciting. I heard it was good, very good things, man. I saw the Smith on the thumbnail.
Yeah,
Smith.
Same thing, man. Just like everybody else, just kicking out shows, man. That's it, man. Just been doing the same old thing, cutting along.
Grind.
That's it. Yes, sir.
Nice. Fuck yeah. Hunter, welcome back to the show, man. It's been a little while. We need to catch up, man. We're talking the other day. We need to hop on a call, man. You had your FOE meetup a few weeks ago, right, in Florida?
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
Yeah, talk to me about that. That looked. I saw pictures and stuff. Man, it looked dope.
It was great. We had Phil, so that helped. Definitely having his truck because our asses we got rained out. So it was awesome. A bunch of dudes getting together. A lot of the men. It was their first time getting away from the family. Being able to just do a vacation for themselves. A lot of development. I mean, that's what FOE does. The guys are meeting up all the time, so it's pretty cool to, instead of like 2 or 3 getting dinner, getting like 20, 25, 30 together to go do some stuff together. And you get that many men together and you're like, oh, there's going to be issue. Man, there was no issues. Everybody had a great time. Everybody worked together. Everybody asked the questions. They got some one-on-one, some hands-on experience. It was a good time. We did a lot of cool things. Between that, I'm running Men of March. I got the podcast going. It's busy. That's actually why I text you. I felt like we haven't spoken in like months, but it was probably like 2 weeks. But it feels like friggin' forever when you're constantly going and going and going. Yeah. So taking a moment to get that one-on-one, a phone call in, it's important. Yeah, man. Friends, family, just to check in.
Yeah, 2 weeks in internet time as an entrepreneur is like 2 years. Well, maybe that's a little exaggeration, but yeah, it's amazing how fast time flies, man. You're running an online business and you have meetups and family and all these things. It's nuts, dude.
It's good though.
Yeah, glad you're doing well, man. Glad FOE is going strong. It really reminds me. I know Ken does something similar too up in like a meetup up in Denver, but back in the day, the pickup artist community was really big on this. These little meetups. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it'd be like 3 or 4 guys. Sometimes in Orlando, there was a big one. Tampa, Orlando, we had the top layer, and we had up to like 30, 40 guys sometimes do meetups. And we had approach-a-thons, it was called. We got basically harass women in public, like these stupid pickup artists open. I have pictures and shit. Yeah, Universal Studios and City Walk and all around Orlando, there's so many places to do it. But it really feels like an evolution of that. The manosphere is kind of like a history repeating itself like a cycle. But it's very positive, and I think it's awesome you guys are doing that. I almost went up there. I was talking to you guys when you had the meetup going on. It was just such a fucking huge drive, and I was actually had the flu when that was going on. Well, I assume it was the flu, but we'll see.
You had the HIV, we know.
Yeah.
Hunter, when is your next meetup for FOE? And do you have one in the summer planned, or what's going on?
We do, August. So we're looking to dial that one in, and I'm looking to. So I was talking to Phil about this, getting some little more regional ones going around. So we're going to be traveling a little bit more, hitting a few local pockets of men. It's looking good, man. There are so many guys coming together looking to do good, and sometimes, for whatever reasons, the main meetup they can't get out. You got to kind of show those guys some love. So we're going to try to get their way, meet up with them, and not leave them out. But it's cool, man. There's nothing replaces these live meetups. I mean, we have guys in there doing AR builds. We have guys showing up there doing obstacle course races. Like, FOE men are meeting up all the time doing these awesome freaking things. And that's what's missing in a lot of men's lives is they don't do the thing. It's cool to see each other right now, through a screen. It's cool to chat on Twitter and, we've got our private chat group, but nothing replaces physical world connection. Nothing. Yeah. Shaking a man's hand, looking him in the eye. That's when it's real. And that's what we try to do as much as possible.
Yeah, man. I feel you, man. I even have attendees that I talk to on the phone or through email and stuff from the 21 convention. And a lot of them, there was even a new one that almost went to your meetup because they just don't have any meetups like that. And they tell me that's what they want. And they see 21Con as an opportunity to do that. But at most, we do 3 a year, and that's a lot. Usually it's just like 1 or 2 or something like that. So I actually was telling them to go to your thing and as a kind of a substitute in the meantime, because there's not that many opportunities to do it. As we know, the bowling alleys are gone. The barbershops are gone. The cigar lounges are dying out. Men don't have these kind of physical meetups anymore, and I agree 1,000,000%. The face-to-face is huge. Guys always tell me it's about 21Con. It's the favorite thing, not the speeches, which is cool, but they get to like hang out with all the speakers and all the other attendees for days. And that face-to-face interaction, I think there's a lot of like psychology behind it too. Like frontal lobe stuff, when you meet people face-to-face, it builds a lot deeper connection. Maybe Ken could tell us about that.
It's fucking brutal. Like if you have feelings, don't go to those meetups. It's like as soon as you wake up, somebody's talking shit about you to you or something. You're just busting balls the entire time. Like there's
Bro, I'm red pill. I don't have feelings. Are you kidding me?
They come from ovaries.
Jesus. Yeah, Ken, talk to me about that before I hop into history. Like when I cite science on that, these are just things I've read and I believe in to a good extent, but I don't understand. I won't pretend to understand the actual psychology and neurochemistry behind it or anything like that.
Yeah, and I don't think you have to understand any of that. I think it's more of a pragmatic thing that we know that when guys get together and talk and hang out and bust each other's balls or or support each other when something difficult's happening. I mean, it makes a huge difference. I'm sure Phil's gone through something really powerful there. And during those unknown, uncertain periods, man, you need guys around you. And having men in your life is a really powerful thing. To be able to have the face-to-face, it has to be, you have to have it in your life, because the guys that miss having those men, man, you miss something so powerful in your life. I mean, like you said, the science is saying it, the psychologists are saying it, everybody's saying we need people in our lives. And the whole thing of Twitter or Facebook or anything online, it's good. It connects people. You learn something, but it's just not the real thing. And we need the real thing, and we need the support of guys around us. I talk about guys. I'd gotten this from Clint Hurdle. He's a Major League Baseball manager. He was here at the Rockies for a while. And one of his things was that every man needs a Mount Rushmore, that we need 4 men in our lives that are solid. And when you say, I've got my Mount Rushmore, I think of at least 4 guys that I have who are in my life, who are supporting me, and they know my shit. And if something's happening, they're there with me, whether it's moving furniture or whether it's going through a cancer diagnosis. Those guys are there with me. And having that face-to-face and having things like, the 21 or Hunters meetups, that's where these relationships are built. And we just absolutely need it.
Yeah, it feels very tribal. Like you mentioned, a pragmatic level, you can understand it. To me, that almost sounds like a common sense, even evolutionary approach to happiness and health. Is these tribes, whether it's Hunters FOE or 21 Con, Cobra Tate, they have like war room meetups every once in a while, and I agree, like they're really important, and they're not happening outside of the manosphere too much. There's like sports things, obviously, and religious events, but those are not. I don't think those are the same thing. They're not secular. Like these are for all men, like Hunter's thing.
Yeah, and I was going to say too. I mean, to kind of weigh in here, in the MGTOW community, there's been a huge push for social isolation, and I've talked against this for quite some time. I think that you really don't even get to know somebody until you're actually in their personal space and you've met them face to face physically. And that's where you start to get to know them and see what they're really made of. And at some level, see what you're really made of, like Ken said. But I think that, this big push, or this idea that people, like men, shouldn't be meeting up and men should be self-isolated, and men shouldn't dox themselves to other people. I really think that in 99.9% of the cases, that's false wisdom. And I think that, being able to have those friendships and being able to say, yeah, I can pick up the phone and call somebody, or, I can go and get together and meet with my friends and have that face-to-face interaction and communication. That's important because, it's like what Drew said, if you're a pussy, don't show up. Well, as men, we constantly task each other. We constantly harass and practice raillery with each other because we want to make sure that, number one, that's how men bond. Men bond with raillery. And so I think that, when it comes to getting together, that's a crucial aspect of life. And male spaces, since feminism has kind of taken the forefront, has really destroyed a lot of male spaces and fraternities that have been out there. So the fact that the manosphere is creating this resurgence with, the Fraternity of Excellence, for example, or for like with what Ken's doing and what some of these other people are doing, this is absolutely crucial because men need male spaces where we can grow and learn and test our theories and test our beliefs.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to do it, guys, with my thing too. Obviously, 21, since that was my initial vision. People ask me consistently, how did the convention start? What motivated me? And it was very simple. I was very young, 17. I sucked with girls. I wanted to fix that because I didn't like that. And basically, the idea for 21 Con was a meetup. It was just like very similar to what Hunter's doing. It wasn't supposed to be like this conference. We weren't like outdoors or anything like that. We were doing a head on women in Orlando. But that very quickly from the attendees, the guys that were coming to it that said they would show up just by RSVPing, they didn't even buy a ticket. They encouraged me to have speakers and find a hotel room, and then someone volunteered to do video and audio. And before I knew it, we had an actual conference at a Holiday Inn in Orlando in a conference room, somewhere actually right near where we did the conferences last year on iDrive there. And then, of course, here we are 13 years later with all these different brands and podcasts and interviews and speeches and events and speakers, and it's like, it's this wild ride. I'm excited to see where events like FOE and communities like that go and Ken's thing, because these things, man, if they snowball over time. I think it's the face-to-face interactions and everything that we're talking about. That networking effect, like it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as time goes on. So that's been my experience anyway, and I imagine that Hunter is going to go through that, and anyone else who gets a group together like that.
So Anthony, with that, thinking of the evolution of this whole thing, it started off like what you're describing.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, this is where you're wanting this whole episode to be, is kind of thinking of the how this has gone from one place to the next and then where it's going. So when you're thinking about that, it feels like to me that there has been a mission that's developed where it might have kind of it's shown up, so to speak, but it feels like that there's something going on that's created a pretty significant purpose.
Yeah.
And kind of there's something happening here. It's not just meeting up. It's just not the conversations. There's something greater, bigger going on. What do you think that is? Or how would you describe it?
Yeah. So I would describe it from two perspectives, one being deeply personal to me as the founder and the CEO. My companies are not just, corporations and stuff, but they're founder led, which is unique and special, I think. One of the capital guys or billionaires I follow on this, co-founder of PayPal is Peter Thiel. I think they say his name. Mm-hmm. And he talks about companies that are still founder led years and decades in. And it is a different vibe to it. The same way if Steve Jobs is still alive today, leading Apple instead of Tim Cook or someone like that. So you mentioned, though, that the developing angle, too, and I like that a lot because, for example, Making Women Great Again is now one of the missions of 21 Studios through the 22 convention. And that is so far, not removed, but that is such a significant evolution. There's multiple layers between the origin of the company and the event, or basically the event that turned into a media company, into an events company and all that. And then now the entire audience is different. We're now talking to women, and it's a whole different mission from speaking to young men, which then turned into all men, which then turned into fathers and husbands, like with the Patriarch Edition last year. So yeah, it's just amazing to see that keep going and keep evolving and developing. And I think it's a very good sign too. I think it's easy to get stuck. Like people want you to pick like a mission and then stick to it and not evolve on that. I don't like that. I will stick to fundamentals and principles when and where I believe they need to be at. But for example, when I started the company, it was much more focused on pickup and basically self-improvement with dating and that in mind. There was a little bit of health and fitness, but that was like one speech at the first event. So even that though, in 2009, when I got away from that, I added 2 speeches on health and fitness. There was actually a lot of pushback to that. A lot of the pickup artist guys didn't like that. The attendees, they were maybe not the attendees, but the guys who wanted to attend and they saw the conference as a vessel for that. They were really pissed off I would even deviate from pickup artistry at all. And now, of course, that's been kind of a cornerstone, is the ongoing development of the company and the mission that keeps getting more and more comprehensive, but still has fundamentals at root. And I would say some of the core fundamentals of the company are, like, people look at Making Women Great Again and Patriarch Edition, all this stuff. I would say some of the core fundamentals are really just masculinity and femininity, and improving those and increasing those in men and women and healing those, like healing gender relations, which I think are collapsing in America and the West. So yeah, there's so much to it. It's just nuts, man. Like I really need to write a fucking book on everything that's happened, which I might be doing pretty soon. On a personal level, though, I'll say that, and I talked about this in an email not too long ago, a newsletter to all the attendees and fans. But I had a very, very traumatic, abusive, violent childhood. It was like absolute chaos at a really unusual level, because I think in most cases, this level of chaos and violence, it would have been like a bubble that popped. Someone getting arrested and actually going to jail for a long time, stuff like that. So there would have been mechanisms, I think, that would have stopped this from occurring, but it didn't. And so my childhood was really traumatic and bizarre like that. There's definitely worse in America and around the world, of course, but it was pretty bad. But I think what that means is I was very underfathered and undermothered. I had like really deeply immature parents that were just really bad parents, basically, that couldn't take care of their children. And you guys as speakers have basically been helping me refather myself. You guys are sort of father figures to me explicitly. And I think that's how a lot of the attendees and the fans of the channel and stuff from the Red Man Group and 21 Convention, that's how they use you guys too. And that's even how they see you to an extent. You're mentors for them over the internet and then in person when they go to the conferences. And that's special. I think, the entire, and I think that's why the convention and 21 Studios and Red Man Group have been speaking and reaching so many millions of people. Now women too, but even, of course, men before that. The millennial generation in particular, I think we're the first generation to have multiple layers of, feminist blue pill crap, which leads to, these hyper equal households with no one leading it. Like there's no father-led masculinity to it, which is kind of the downfall of the family and all these other fucking problems, from single motherhood to promiscuous behavior and all this crap that we see. The degeneracy, as Elliot Hulse would call it, the degenerate age. So I think I'm just a more intense example of what's happening culturally and socially to millions and millions of young men and women. They don't know how to be masculine. They don't know how to be feminine. They've been taught the opposite, to live these androgynous, genderless lives. It's not even okay these days, till recently. It's been improper to say like I saw, for example, this is funny, but I saw Michelle Obama in a video that someone shared. She was calling Harvey Weinstein, just got sent to jail for fucking, rape and sexual harassment, whatnot. She was calling him like a great human being, which of course is its own. She did this on video. You can see it. And when she was first lady, who knows when it was 2014 or something like that. So of course, everybody who doesn't like her is sharing this video. Okay, great.
Well, you got to understand though, that's just one dude supporting another.
Well, yeah, but hang on a second. So what's interesting about that video, I don't really want to get into the Harvey Weinstein crap right now, but she called him not in this speech. It was, the White House or something. She called him not a great man, but a great human being. And I think that's really systemic to the entire culture right now, that we're at a point where it's not even appropriate or proper to say anymore. It's not socially proper to say man, great man or great woman. We have to de-gender and neutralize everything, which is really, I think, disgusting and dangerous. So I don't know where this rant's going at this point, but you guys are fucking great. And there's a lot of you. There's half a dozen of us here on the show now, but really there's 150 of us more at this point. Speakers and actually counting Redman Group panelists, there's dozens more that we've had on the show.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been a wild ride. And I guess my fundamental point here is that I'm at a position that really reflects on what millions of young men and women and older men and women are experiencing in the country right now to different degrees, depending on how their childhood went, how their youth went, what kind of issues they had, toxic relationship, divorce, all these things. And it's just amazing to put it all together and lead it and use it to help myself, which is how the conference started. Like I wanted to get better with women. And then I found out a lot of dudes also thought that was a great idea because they also sucked with women. And here we are, 13 years later, still going, still kicking strong, stronger than ever, I'd say, much bigger.
And I like what you're saying, Anthony, because, I don't like it. It's a horrible thing where we find ourselves, and that's in a world of fatherlessness. Mm-hmm. And that our voices, our strength, our presence here, the things that you do at the 21 convention, the things that, Steve's doing his thing for 2 hours or whatever, the guys are eating that up because it's like, this is a father speaking to me, telling me what life's all about, telling me what I'm all about. And that's a really powerful thing because we don't have that. And most people don't have a sense of having had a father. And so strengthening people by being a really strong voice like that, it's anathema because it's like, fatherhood is not seen as something that's okay. And that's why we find ourselves in this spot. Yeah. And so it's awesome having the posture or the place or the context to be able to actually father people in our world in a way that it could never happen.
Yeah.
It's amazing how we can do all this stuff with the podcasting and this thing that we're doing right now and all that. It's amazing that we're able to have that kind of influence because it's just a beautiful thing to build somebody's heart and soul into strength.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, before the internet, they always talked about 6 degrees of separation. One of the advantages about having the internet is now those 6 degrees are gone. We can reach out to one another all the way across the world and go out and have coffee, meet with each other online, send emails back and forth, and foster friendships across the world that very few people used to do. But I mean, I remember, like in the 1900s, for example, people would write each other letters of introduction and they would start communicating, via snail mail. And sometimes these conversations would go for months just to have a conversation we can now do instantaneously online. So we kind of get a feel for some of these people before we meet them, but then we get together and we meet them and it's a whole different program. I mean, I went down and spent a few weeks with Anthony. We met face to face and, so it was easy for us to kind of take each other's measure. So, I think that, when these things happen, again, this goes back to what Hunter and everybody else was saying about you have to be able to meet face to face. You have to be able to, really spend some time with these people and get to know them, and then be able to really assess who they are as individuals and be able to bring those male spaces back, because that's really one of the things we don't have anymore, is that male spaces have all been destroyed except for what everybody's created here through the 21 convention, through the fraternity of excellence, through, all these groups that everybody are creating.
The manosphere itself is a huge illustration of this, I think. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that when it comes to that, people understand, okay, this is something important and it's good to get behind. But I also think it's important too, and Anthony, you kind of hit the nail on the head with this, with the whole make women great again, is that, women have been victimized by this, feminist indoctrination, this leftist indoctrination as well. There are a lot of women out there who, they want to be in a relationship and they want to be able to have a committed relationship with a man, but they've been so deeply indoctrinated that they're always waiting a monkey branch to the next one. And so finding a woman who's capable of breaking that and actually doing the whole, commitment, wife, mother thing in a lot of ways is a bit more difficult for the average man. And so having these male spaces to really help mentor men and, basically having steel sharpen steel, I think is extremely important.
Yeah, fuck yeah. One thing I wanted to mention too that just came to mind here in the different, you guys talk about this. My experience, I think there's a lot of complexity to being underfathered or fatherlessness, and even being undermothered, not having good role models in your life as a young child or even a teenager and whatever. But I haven't heard that talked about too much. I just wanted to bring that up. So obviously you have, these single mother households that have increased through the roof. Single motherhood now, or single parenthood, is at like 40% or something like that for children, whereas 100 years ago it was at 2%. So there's been an explosion of this over the past century. But, lack of a father in a home is one example of that, and you guys deal with that. You guys have clients and customers and things like that, and fans who they're in the 20s or whatever, and they grew up in a single parent household, single mother household. But then beyond that, like in my case, my parents are still married today, so I didn't have that. What I did have was a present but very negative and hostile example of masculinity and of a father. Other guys can relate to that too. Their parents or parent were in their lives. They weren't, thrown to the grandparents or the foster care system, which has its own set of problems, obviously. But, there can be negative but present examples too. And then obviously you have the present example who's low masculinity, the beta dad, Billy, beta Bob or whatever, who doesn't teach his son how to be masculine because the dad doesn't know himself. Or he's at least, if he knows it, he's been indoctrinated to not live it. So there's a lot of complexity in different ways this can go wrong. And then the outcome are, young men and women who don't know how to be men and how to be women. The DJ hit on that too. I mean, that was a good point. Young women have been fed blue pill crap too, and it really ruins their lives. It just looks different with cat hair and wine and stuff.
Right.
It's funny, but it sucks.
Yeah. Well, and I was also going to say too that I think the other thing that is often missed, and we did a stream about this, I think last year, where we talked in depth about the importance of the extended family. I mean, feminists try to create this false dichotomy of being single or being a part of the nuclear family, and really both are wrong. I think that the extended family is absolutely crucial because a lot of people can't be able, they're just unable to raise their children by themselves. The father needs the grandfather and the uncles to kind of help mentor him. The mom needs the other women in the family to kind of help her out. Plus, mom and dad need their time alone. So, having relatives being able to watch those children so that mom and dad can focus on that relationship, I think is extremely important. But also it's important for the children as well, because, the children can talk to the aunts and the uncles and the cousins and be able to have that good communication and be able to, have that good mentorship as well. Because sometimes if as a child, if you can't talk to your parent, but you have another family member you can talk to, that's extremely important. And it's the same for every member of that nuclear family. That extended family is absolutely crucial, I believe, to the survival of the family and to the return of the family. And so, and Anthony's got his picture here of his.
Dude, I love being an uncle is the coolest thing, man. I love my nephew so much. He's amazing. It's been really life-changing for me, man, to just have him be around him.
Yeah.
I'll talk about that after you're done, but that's why I was showing him off here. He's amazing. This little guy.
Oh
dude.
yeah.
Dude.
No, but that's the importance of it, right? I mean, again,
Yeah.
it's that extended family. So, this idea of nuclear family being enough, I mean, sometimes it has to be enough. So, we've got to have strong community ties, but, really the goal should be focusing on creating a strong extended family so that, our family legacies can continue. I think that, that's super crucial.
Dude, I can back that up.
That's hardly ever talked about.
I can back that up 1,000,000%, man. When I mentioned like release valves or mechanisms that would stop just the really fucked up childhood I had for me and my siblings. It wasn't just me. I have 3 siblings too. One of those could be like law enforcement, actually laws being enforced, jail time, things like that. But beyond that, extended family. And my extended family did repeatedly try to step in, and even they were thwarted. But that was in one part because a lot of my relatives lived across the country. They lived in New Jersey rather than in Florida. But my uncle tried, man. For a good example, my uncle he was a lot older than my mom, and he actually tried in the beginning and throughout to protect us, to help us out, and do what he could. And the situation was just so fucked up that he was not able to get through and get that done. But I remember the effort, and the effort was real. And the same for his wife, my aunt. And I'll never forget that, even to this day. Very, very thankful for that. And I can feel that now with my own nephew. Like, I want to make sure that he has the best life that he can, and I can do what I can for him as an uncle to help out him, my sister, and the father. So yeah, extended family is extremely important, and the closer you can get to them, the closer you can maintain those relationships and those bonds, the better. I'm very thankful I had the relationship I did with my uncle and my aunt growing up, and my cousins and stuff like that. And without them, that would have been even worse. I think my life would have been a lot worse. I mentioned too in the email I sent the other day, when I first talked to Richard Grandin, one of our speakers who focuses on psychology and trauma and stuff like that, he was surprised when I told him kind of just the basic outline of what happened in my life growing up, that I wasn't in jail or a drug addict and stuff like that. And the reality is, like, my little brother, for example, has been through a lot of this stuff. I've seen him in the ICU with 3 gunshots on him. One of them went right through the neck for trying to deal drugs and stupid shit like that. And I didn't obviously turn out this way. My life's been a lot different. I've been an entrepreneur full time since I was 17 years old. So at his age, he was in the hospital, 3 bullet holes through him, and I was building a business at that point. So different life paths, and it's just wild shit. But yeah, extended family for the win, man. It's my little sister has another one on the way too, so I'll have another niece or nephew pretty soon. Pretty excited.
Nice.
Yeah, it really gets me excited to have my own children someday. Like, the absolute positivity you feel in regard for a little human being like this is just amazing, man. What's your own blood? I mean, it's one thing when you know Socrates as a daughter. I got to know Elizabeth Grace growing up, and that's been amazing. But she's not my blood, so it's a little different. And having a nephew has just been totally eye opening, man. I understand. I think it's a mini version of what you guys go through as fathers. The regard you feel for your children, and it's awesome, man. I'm very jealous of you guys. You guys have kids, especially Hunter, my age, you fucker.
It's fantastic. Honestly, everybody thinks I'm the positive dude. You can't help but be having a good time and smiling. I mean, life's too easy and it's too short, and I'm having a blast, man. So make those babies.
Yeah, me and Soccer still trying to figure out how to rope you and have more kids, dude. Knock Jackie up, man.
Yeah. I'm growing it. I'm being out patriarched by Tanner and those guys.
Yeah, man. So I want to talk a little bit about the history of the Red Man Group, kind of a basic overview for the new fans who aren't familiar with it. Even some of the older fans are not too familiar with it. So let's get that going. So just a quick overview. I don't get into too much details, but we can be candid where it's appropriate. The first episode of the Red Man Group aired on February 10th, 2018 on 21 Studios. Rollo Tomasi, one of the co-founders, and I have been talking for a little while about doing a kind of group chat like this. And it was interesting to me. Obviously, we had a lot of speakers to pull from with 21 Convention, guys he knew. So it kind of just came about organically talking like that. And it was me, Ryan Stone, Rollo, Rich Cooper, and Black Label Logic were the first panelists. After that, I think this was on Saturday, we made it into a weekly thing. And there's even more we can get into. I think where Rollo got the idea in part, either on his own stuff or 321, was this, where we did 21 Convention podcasts for years, starting in 2014.
I was shit-faced at the end of that podcast right there.
Yeah.
What is that, 4 fingers in that?
Dude, I was a mess.
Yeah. Him and Sock had a whole drinking fight here, and Socrates won.
Oh,
yeah. So we started these in 2014, and then we did there's some YouTube ones too. And I really like the idea of a podcast like this in person at the conventions. It obviously made sense to utilize all the flights and the logistics of putting you guys together. It felt like a waste to not do group stuff. So this is kind of the beginning of it. This was filmed in 2017. There were ones like this in 2014 as well, with the old speakers, and then some online ones too. But the problem I always had as an entrepreneur is I knew the branding. I mean, not immediately, but I figured out in probably like 2015, I was like, the branding is hard to get down on this. We had like 21 Radio as a brand for it, for example, and then the 21 Convention podcast, but neither of those quite stuck. Like 21 Convention is its own thing, but it's built up a legacy on its own through millions of views. But getting a podcast going, the branding and the name wasn't really down. I just kind of knew it didn't have the zing to it in the ring that like 21 Convention had and other podcasts. So at the end of the day, that's one of the reasons I agreed to do it with Rollo, is I really like the idea of having 21 Studios having a podcast like this, but with much better branding and momentum. And this ultimately, I think, is what turned into this, which then, of course, turned into us now. So that's been going on now since February 10th, 2018, first episode. And here we go, too. I want to show you guys, too, for any fans who haven't seen it, but if you go on the channel, Redman Group or 21 Studios, you can see we've done these at the events, too. The first one was actually in 2018. This is 2019 in the spring at the Patriarch Edition. And these are pretty advanced. This is the first time we had these filmed in 4K through camera angles. I think we had 6 or 7 panelists on here. Jack Murphy, myself, Donovan Sharp, of course, Bobby Dino. Rollo was on there, and Ken Curry. No, Ken Curry was on another one later that day. George Bruno's on this one, too. So this is like kind of like the real, a comparative version of The View, but for men, without any of the feminist loser thinking. So it's pretty exciting to put it together, and the live ones are my favorite. I think they're really powerful because it's face-to-face like we talked about, so the speakers get to ping off each other really fast, and everything goes much quicker. Like this one's only 68 minutes, but it feels like a good 2 hours because everything's just so fast-paced. There's no internet delay, no audio issues, video issues, bullshit like that. So these are some of my favorite, and we filmed these again, 2018, 2019 Patriarch. We filmed 2 of them in Poland. Those have an audio issue we got to fix, but it's not too bad. And then we filmed, I think, 2 or 3 in Florida last year. So we still got to roll more of those out, but I think all the Patriarch ones are out now, or most of them. Let me see too. Oh yeah, so I want to tell you guys as well. I don't need the that up for it. So for those of you who don't know, the Redman Group is a company, and it did not start as a company. When we had, where is it? When we had, when we started it, it wasn't a business. It was just like a show we wanted to do. Not long after that, let's do this. Fucking StreamYard. Not long after that, the show, Rollo, without consulting me, bumped it to Richard Cooper's channel back and forth. We were all on good terms at the time, so I was like, whatever. But basically, it bounced back and forth for a long time, till the summer. By summertime, it had built up between 21 Studios channel, which is pretty big, and then Cooper's channel, which is pretty big. It had built up a sizable audience. And at that time, in the summer of 2018, is when Rich and Rollo approached me about building it into a business, actually forming it into a company and things like that. And I was actually very skeptical of that. I figured it might create some complexity and potential problems. Nothing like what ended up happening. I did not anticipate that. But it's very common in entrepreneurship circles, so to speak, to know that partnerships have problems. It's very, very common. Almost any attorney or CPA that you talk to that has any experience will tell you partnerships have problems 80, 90% of the time. So I was hoping it would go well, and I was skeptical that we should do it. I thought it was kind of better to bounce it back and forth between the channels, keep it informal. But at the end of the day, they were both pretty adamant about it, and I was like, fuck it, I'll put it together. Because Cooper lived in Canada, so he didn't know how to do like an American company. And then Rollo had no experience with entrepreneurship, so I was like, fuck it, I'll just put it together. And later that year, in 2018, we formed the LLC. I think it was in July or August in Florida. And then we finished all the paperwork eventually in early 2019. For those of you who don't know, there was eventually a falling out. We need to get into all the exact details of it. But basically, Rich Cooper criticized the safety of the convention in public, 21 Convention, which pissed me off pretty bad. I told him to eat dirt, and he was basically a huge pussy. And then I ended up buying him out of the company. Rollo suggested that either Rich buy me out or I buy Cooper out to kind of resolve the dispute. And I ended up actually going to bat for it. And I bought Rich Cooper out. We agreed to a price. And then that gave me control of the company, which is pretty funny, which Rollo had to sign off on. And then eventually, of course, me and Rollo had a falling out. for all sorts of interesting reasons surrounding Nelly Bowles and doxing and safety and privacy. And then Rollo resigned in June of 2019, leaving me with 100%, leaving 21 Studios anyway, with 100% control over the Redman Group, which I found hysterical because I didn't even want to do the company in the first place. So, yeah. And on top of that, the company had a bunch of money in it that we didn't really use anything for. So the company ended up being left with more money in it than I paid for it. So I paid negative money to have the Redman Group that I like and I love, but I didn't even want to have as a company. And here we are today at episode 100. So, legally, it's been a whole fucking, not legally maybe, but business-wise, it's been an interesting and provocative story that maybe goes in a book someday. But yeah, what a wild ride.
Well, and I think I might be able to add some of that too, because I mean, you kind of opened your books to me. And I mean, obviously, I'm not going to violate some of the NDAs you and I have signed. Yeah. But, when we looked at the back end of the books and we looked at a lot of the stuff that was going on and some of the stuff that led to that, I mean, I think the issue is that there's a lot of people in the manosphere who virtue signal their desire to help other men. But then when it comes to actually doing it, they don't. They basically out themselves as wanting a cult of personality, and they want to have this whole power and control for themselves because they're jealous of what other people bring to the table, and they have that super high level of insecurity. And the reason I bring that up is because like we talked about earlier about how getting men together is super important. I know that like when I first got involved with the Redman Group, I had issues with both Donovan Sharp and Steve the Dean, but a lot of those issues were based on a lack of communication. They weren't based on actual differences that we had. It was, we had far more in common than we disagreed on. And when we've disagreed, we've, once I understood that, it was, they were non-traversies, right? And so I think those things are extremely important. And sure, everybody talked shit about each other back then, and I'm sure there's some recordings out there of me trash talking them. And I know Dean's talk shit to me to my face, which is fine. That's what men do, right? So those things I think are important. But I also think that it's interesting because, as the Redman Group has evolved, as 21 has evolved, as all these different organizations that we discuss evolve, you see the actual real men, and I say real men in air quotes in some ways, you see them rise to the surface, and then you see all the cult of personality and the insecurity and the haterade. You see that kind of flow by the wayside, and these people end up outing themselves, and it's like you end up living rent free in their head, months and months and months. And you're like, I've already moved on. I'm doing other things. And then you're like, oh, that person. Yeah. I kind of remember who they were.
I never watched the little news show they made and they bounce around on like we used to the Redman Group. But I hear from attendees and, different people that watch it that they talk a lot of shit. And I was very skeptical of this. I'm like, these people are just blowing smoke. Like they must be exaggerating how much they talk shit. But the other day I actually looked real quick, and within 30 seconds, I hear bitching about Anthony, 21 Convention, President. The chat is bitching about me. They're bitching about me live. They're bitching about me directly. They're bitching about me indirectly. They've made me into like Darth Vader and like the 21 Empire. It's hysterical. And I don't even, I've been so busy like, with,
You're more like Ginger Vader, but go on.
Ginger, fuck you. I got some red in the beard. It's dope, dude. I'm like 12% Irish. Ginger Vader. No, but it's like it's real. Now I was surprised. I really thought that there were people that were reporting to me. I thought they were exaggerating. I'm like, there's no way. They must be talking about other shit. Like, there's no fucking way they keep bitching about me, but they do. And other guys, not just me, but DDJ, George Bruno, all you guys, they're obsessed. And we barely talk about them except when it's necessary in the show.
Yeah, and honestly, I've figured that out within, like the MGTOW community as well. There's elements of the MGTOW community that it's like they sit in the corner and they masturbate while crying, while cursing me, in the middle of the darkness or something. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I'm like, whatever. Yeah. And the sad part about it is that, everybody's got their own little core audience when it comes to some of this stuff. But, the beauty of the facts is that, the truth doesn't really give a fuck about your feelings or about how you're going to reframe stuff. That's one of the reasons I like the Redman Group. It's one of the reasons that I support the 21 Convention and everybody here is that we don't have to agree on everything. And one of the reasons that I'm here, number one, is to test my theories and opinions when people disagree with me. And I think that at some level, I think people are willing to do the same with me in trade, and of course with each other. So I think that, it's one of those scenarios where it's like we're coming up with new ideas, we're coming up with new thought processes, and we're coming up with new ways to support men, in the 21st century. And everybody else is sitting here trying to make this like little cult of personality. And they're like, well, I want to make everybody insecure so that they're addicted to my particular brand of whining. And, oh yeah, by the way, I'm insecure about Anthony, or I'm insecure about Steve the Dean, or I'm insecure about Hunter Drew or anybody else. And so I'm going to go ahead and cry about it. And I mean, again, it's like, that's why I'm just like, I when it comes to a lot of this stuff, when I found out about this the other day, I was like, whatever, it is what it is. I mean, the fact of the matter is, 21 has become bigger and better. Red Man Group has become bigger and better. I've met a lot of great people, being a part of this. And, you're always going to face criticism, right? So, and again, bitch is bitch. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I would say actually the criticism, like it reminded me of Make Women Great Again, seeing them bitch about me like this, because the press and the media bitched about me like crazy too, right? Me and the speakers and Stefan Molyneux and 22 convention. And I think when people bitch about you over a certain threshold, you've risen above them. The consistency and the outrage and the intensity, and I think that's what we've done. Is like the company has gotten so much press and has so much going on, and so so many videos and speakers and all this controversy, even with Make Women Great Again, just by itself. Yeah, we've risen above them, and it really drives them nuts. Like Rolo can't stand that. He's really thin-skinned, narcissist, I think, to the bone. Not a doctor, but that's my professional, informal, amateur opinion, so to speak. Combination of that. And yeah, when you bitch about someone like that consistently, they don't even barely pay attention to you. It's weak, man. Like,
well, it's like a woman.
Get shit done.
Yeah, it's like a woman who bitches about their ex for years at a time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. One thing I'm going to swap Phil out here in a second with Noah Ravoy. We can only have 6 in the panel at a time. But I did want to say, too, something that you actually bring to mind, DDJ, both in what you're talking about as well as who you are and what you represent, is I think Red Man Group in 21, just Red Man Group, though, for example, focus on it. It's been really good at being diplomatic between different communities. Mm-hmm. So, for example, we've had men's rights, speakers on the channel, like Janice Fimengo, who's very well known in that community. The first woman, by the way, in the Red Man Group, broke the glass ceiling. I think Hunter represents kind of the family component of the entire manosphere, obviously. The fatherhood element. He used to, we'll bring it back at some point, but he ran for a long time the Patriarchs edition of Red Man Group, and is obviously was a keynote speaker of the Patriarch edition, first ever for 21Con. So, and then obviously the DDJ and recently Coach Greg Adams, you guys are 100% MGTOW. Like that's what you really represent in terms of a community element, who your followings are. And we've been able to diplomatically bring everybody on the show and get along pretty well. For men with strong personalities and visions and goals and principles. And I think that's really fantastic. And that's something that is supposed to be praised in wider culture, but you rarely see it. All this diversity and tolerance bullshit, it's all nonsense. It's all propaganda. But to the extent it has value, we actually do that. In the manosphere, and then specifically with Red Man Group in 21, we do that at an incredible level.
Well, and I think that the thing that I really value about it, and the most important thing is, there isn't a single guy here that is politically correct with me. Okay. Everybody who, when we disagree or when we have a conversation about this type of thing, everybody says what's on their mind. Nobody holds back. And I don't hold back. And nobody's thin skinned. Nobody needs to rush out and grab a man pawn. Nobody needs a Midol. It's just, it's guys talking, and it's different paths to the same place, and that's really what it is. And it's absolutely important, and I would say this, I think that, at my core, I support the family. I support marriage. I support relationships. I support extended family, fatherhood, grandfatherhood. I support all those things. It's just my experience has led me down a particular path to where I'm at today. But that doesn't mean that those things don't have value. That's one of the things that, like when I first met Hunter Drew, I thought we clicked right away as far as our personalities and being able to communicate in different things. And I also think that it's important too, from an American standpoint, to be able to stand for our freedom of speech, our Second Amendment rights, our constitutional rights, and those types of things. Those things are extremely important. It doesn't matter what tribe of the manosphere you come from, if you're an American or at least some semblance of a nationalist, regardless of what country you come from. Again, it's about being a part of your community and being a part of your society and being a contributing citizen.
Yeah. Noah, welcome to the show, man. I brought you in there without formally announcing you. Noah Ravoy, been on the show plenty of times. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I've been listening to the conversation for a while, and it's not just something that we're noticing between each other, that there is two ways of approaching things in the manosphere. I was doing an interview about a week ago, and the individual who was interviewing me, he said, I'm starting to see in the manosphere like a split. He says there's this like masculine, positive, get things done, let's make the future better group. And then there's this kind of effeminate, bitchy, complain about everything group. And he was pretty hard on it. And he says there's these two groups, and he says they're bifurcating more and more.
Yeah.
And we were discussing how, there's a reason why 21 Con can bring in such a big group of men, with very different ideas, is because we're approaching our differences like men. We discuss them. We focus on the truth. We do agree on something. If it's not true, we don't talk it. We focus on truth. And because of that, we're able to have unity despite disagreements on, maybe how to apply things or how to use that truth in the real world. Then there's this other group, the feminine group, that's worried about what they look like. They're worried about face over truth. And that group is going to have constant infighting. They're going to marginalize themselves by their own infighting and by their own effeminate behavior. It's going to cause them to self-destruct. And we basically just have to keep doing what we're doing, and we'll be fine.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, Noah. I like the, what do you call it? What was the word? Bifurcating?
Bifurcation.
Yeah, separation. Yeah. I think any community as it grows is going to splinter off. I mean, whether it's politics with governments and nations, unions. Obviously, America has a complex history with that. But even religions, look at Christianity. How many denominations of Christianity are there? I don't even know. A lot. And the manosphere too.
Are fundamentally identical to each other. They just decided at some point that this group is too big, and we're going to split, often for purely internal politic reasons. Yeah.
Although I think that it's like Christianity denominations are a little bit different than what you're talking about, but it just reminds me, like what you're talking about, I agree. There's a fundamental split in the manosphere over the past year. And I guess I kicked that off by going to war with Rollo in public and the shit he represents. And there was even bloggers that talked about that, and we'll pull one up in a second. But the best one I've seen was secularpatriarchy.wordpress. This guy has been documenting I'll pull it up in a second here, but he's been documenting the manosphere and the history of it for a long time. He's done a really good job of it. Yeah, better than anyone I've seen. He knows it by like the back of his hand. And I didn't even know him, but he was bit by bit, brick by brick, he was breaking down the dispute me and Rollo had from a lot of different angles, and it was really awesome to see that, because it's exactly what we're talking about. It's like, what are the fundamentals of what you're doing? Is it positive? Is masculinity focused? Is it solutions focused, as well as fundamentals and concepts and theory? Or is it just endless negativity that's dressed up as realism, like dog shit with glitter on it?
That's actually what drove me to the Red Man Group. You were talking about being solutions.
That on the more effeminate
Noah, let's get Hunter in real quick. Hunter?
Oh,
no, I was saying that's what drove me to Red Man Group, and that's why I remain a part of this. You said solutions focused. There's a lot of negativity going on. There's a lot when it comes to laws, when it comes to family laws, when it comes to divorce. When I work with guys like DDJ or Tanner, another father, or going around like you're the single version of me. Like, you're what I would be if I was single. Like, that's what Jackie calls you. Like, you're that guy.
So you'd be a redhead?
Yeah, this would totally change overnight. It's nice. Focused on solutions. That's what we're doing here. We're working on, this shit is bad and it's freaking tough. But let's help men. And let's help men. We're going to work towards solutions. And it's not just talking about the problem. And that's the only gripe I don't really talk about, Rule Zero or any of that crew at all. Because like when they talk shit, even when they talk shit, some of the things they said about me, it's fucking hilarious. Good on you guys. That's great. But get back to making content for men, because that's the whole point of this. Just talking shit to talk shit is great in between providing value. That's where the focus needs to be. That's what Red Man Group does. When we talk about the history of this, I think we've gotten better at finding those solutions. On the patriarchs, we didn't talk about, hey man, divorce is tough. We talked, how can you navigate a divorce? How can you capitalize and walk out of this without wanting to fucking shoot yourself in the head? Instead of starting a Glock, how can you get out of this and at least arm yourself to deal with the rough waves? We talked about the solutions. We talked about preparing yourself physically. We talked about how to lead a family. What happens, when you have a dead bedroom. We're helping these men find solutions and improve their lives. That has to be the focus, and that's what Red Man Group does. It focuses on, hey, let's talk about this problem. Let's follow it up with the solution.
Yeah. No, I agree, man. Like when I had, Coach Greg Adams on last week, he's going to speak at the convention too, for men and for women. He's MGTOW guy, 100%. He's like one of the most popular up-and-coming MGTOW YouTubers right now, 80,000 something subscribers. I've like Donovan Sharp had a live stream with him a few months ago, and like Donovan, I have disagreements with the guy, but I don't really care. It's not what's important to me. I mean, the disagreements are interesting. We can look at them, but fundamentally, I talked to him because I wanted to understand like what he believes and what he's advocating for through MGTOW and through his channel, and then solutions from that. Like, what does he provide to men? And I'm not here to dictate and judge every little fucking thing you think. Like people see me, they think like people think, for example, that with 22 convention is a really good example. The media, they thought I was directing you guys on what to say. Like we have all these speakers, and then you guys just say whatever I want you to say, which is stupid. That's absolutely not how any of the conventions work. I'm an absolute dictator for freedom. So when you speak at the convention, you speak about whatever the fuck you want to speak about. I might ask you to speak about something specific, like a topic, but even that's really rare. I would say 90% of the time I don't do that. 95. You guys tell me what you want to speak about, what's important to you, and then the platform, whether it's the 21 convention, 22 convention, or the Red Man Group itself, you focus on what you want to focus on, especially for a speech where you're solo, you're flying out in the world like that. And I love that. I love that freedom to give you guys. And typically you guys do really, really well with it. You dig into what you believe, what's important to you as a core value or core focus at that time in your life as a man and a teacher and an educator or a therapist or whatever you're doing, and you speak to that. It's the truth to power and speaking from the heart kind of thing, which sounds corny, I guess, from media and Hollywood, but there's real power and there's a reality behind that that's very real, if that makes any sense. There's a rawness to it. I think that's important. And I love that. And I would never want to dictate to you guys what to say. The only thing I ask you as a speaker is try not to get us kicked off YouTube. Other than that, I don't give a fuck what you say. Speak, curse, don't curse, like whatever you got to do and whatever topics you want to focus on.
That's one of the things I really love about hanging out with the whole process, the guys, everything. One of my favorite podcasts recently was Jack Donovan interviewing Tanner Guzzi, and two guys that you think about it are on the opposite spectrum on so many different things. And here they are on a podcast talking about the mysteries of the universe. And I'm going, it's just an absolute beautiful thing having two men. Just even think about us, even who's on here now. It's like everybody comes from a completely different place, but yet there is so much respect because we have a common mission, common vision, of really building manhood, masculinity, family. I mean, it's amazing that the respect that's there, regardless of where we disagree on so many different things, come from totally different traditions.
Yeah.
And you just don't see that in the world. And that's why I love this thing.
Yeah, I think we haven't seen it at this scale or this intensity probably since the founding of the United States, is how I see it. Now, maybe that the founding generation, a lot of the founding fathers and things like that, they disagreed with a lot of stuff, but they came together for a common purpose and common vision, and they argued like hell, but they got shit done. And that was, I think one of the most, if not the most important point in human history in terms of human flourishing and improving the human condition, was the founding of this country and fighting the war for independence. And I think that's what we're doing now, is we're fighting a culture war for independence for men and for even women now and for the family.
Absolutely. Yep.
The war for independence and survival, even to an extent. Like I've talked about, I remember Ken, I was talking through text one time, and we were talking about an attendee, I think his son had just killed himself or something like that.
Yeah.
Or someone you knew.
Yep.
And I mean, that's beyond tragic and devastating. Like, holy shit. I can't even imagine I don't have any children yet, but I can't even imagine a family member offing themselves like that. That's unspeakably tragic. But I also look at the future of America and the West, and I see a lot of danger there. I mean, I called feminism a national security threat on national TV, when I was with Piers Morgan, and I mean that. I really think that they're trying to kill off femininity and masculinity. And there's pretty obvious examples of that, like toxic masculinity. All masculinity is toxic. And all the buffoonery and stuff that they portray as men. This is really... It's not just, shitty jokes and all this other stuff. It's a real low-key, long-term war on masculinity and on men, and even femininity and on women. the women who speak up for 22con and make women great again, they get yelled down on the internet immediately. They get screamed at. The women who want to stay home and be housewives and mothers and focus on that, they get bullied, just like I said, and that's really dangerous. Like I don't see a future for this country, let alone the rest of the other Western nations, without family, and you don't have family without masculinity and femininity coming together, and meeting, falling in love, fucking, and then repeating the process and making more children. It's kind of crude, but men and women are born to bang, we're born to love, we're born to interact and engage and be complementary with one another. That's how the species has survived.
Wait a minute. So we're supposed to be fucking the same woman? Fuck.
Well, I mean, at this point, given feminist culture, yeah, we're living in DNA soup, as one speaker put it recently.
Oh my gosh.
But
right. Well, and I think to underscore what you've said, every society is built on the family. Every society is built. I mean, the stronger the families are in communities, the more stable the community. And you can look at a lot of these, left-wing strongholds where family is not a cultural value there. And you can see where, they've got all the issues that are wrong with society. They've got high crime, they've got high levels of degeneracy, they've got high levels of disease, they've got all these social ills. But the one thing that they don't have are a lot of strong families. And those strong families that live in those communities, in a lot of ways, are insulated from those social ills that happen from that failed leadership. So, yeah, I mean, the family is the cornerstone of every society and every successful community in the history of the world.
Yeah. Noah, did you want to hop in? I know we cut you off earlier with Hunter.
No problem. You were saying that, it is a terrible tragedy when an individual kills themselves, but we have an entire civilization that's killing themselves,
Yep.
We're committing civilizational suicide. And that's not, we've inherited this civilization from our ancestors, and we owe them to be good stewards of that and to pass that on to our children. It is not something new. We don't get to decide that, okay, now is the end of civilization. Unfortunately, that's, in certain ways we've been going in that direction. And I think something like what we're facing now with the SARS, with the coronavirus scare, I think it's going to make people think about their lives a little bit more. A lot of what's happening is people are very unconscious of what they're doing, and they're not sufficiently pressured by the realities of the universe to take care of themselves and to take care of family. And someone, I think it was Babylon Bee website, they said for parents are suddenly going to realize that they're going to have to raise their own kids.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what happens if we as a society shift to, we can't have public schools anymore. Number one way the government indoctrinates you, done. On the other hand, women going to have to stay home with their kids. So all these women dropping out of the workforce makes men earn more. Now men can afford to have families that couldn't. A lot of avenues will open up. It won't necessarily be this is what happens. Maybe there's a cure for it next week. Who knows? But I think we could see a major societal shift. And I think what we're doing is going to make any kind of societal shift we have a lot more pleasant. A lot of people think we're doing this. I get all the time, why do you hate women so much? And it's actually exactly the opposite. What we're doing is because, 22con is because we love women and we want to tell them the truth. We're the only ones that care enough to actually tell them the truth. 21con, we love men enough, we're going to tell them the truth. We don't like them enough that we're going to make them, we're going to suck as much money out of them as we can. Instead, we're going to tell them the truth. This is why you put the videos online. This is why there's so much free content. It's why you can see this video for free. We actually care.
Yeah.
And I think this is a big reason why there's really that bifurcation is partially because there's a group that actually cares and a group that cares mostly about themselves. And we're gonna ride this societal change. I've been saying for a while that patriarchy is going to come back into fashion, and this is, I think, accelerating it. What's happening right now?
Yeah, no, I agree. And one of the things that came to mind, by the way, when you said at the beginning of that monologue was, people don't face enough pressures of reality to deal with it appropriately, and that therefore we have welfare systems, food stamps, single mother welfare, the welfare queens, all this stuff. But one of the ways you see that now is the panic from that, because they're not used to dealing with reality sufficiently anyway. They're dependent on other people and on a system, a welfare system that removes some of that personal responsibility. So one of the ways they freak out is the toilet paper apocalypse. You see, men and women buying 80 rolls of toilet paper and shit at Costco, and it's just nuts. It's like, what are you even going to eat to use the toilet paper with? Like, you don't even have food. So yeah, I agree with you a lot of the statements that I think the viral outbreak now, the coronavirus, it's waking people up to a lot of things, even simple things like you have to raise your own children. They need to learn from you. They need to learn values and principles. And like Tanner Guzzi that Hunter was talking about earlier, he was a big thing. His big thing last year at Patriarch at 21Con was culture, building a family culture. In his case, the Guzzies. We are the Guzzies or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But that stuff's real. And he is actually and I agree 100,000,000%, him and his wife are passing on their culture and their traditions to their children. And believe it or not, it's amazing that it even has to be said, but that's gone away in America in the West. And not only in the nuclear family, but like DDJ was talking about, the extended family too. Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact that my parents and grandparents, especially my grandparents, had a lot more of that. And my grandparents helped them a lot. I mean, my grandma was one of the most amazing women I ever got to know in my life, and she grew up in this tiny island in Croatia or Yugoslavia at the time that was owned by Italy or whatever. All this stuff was complicated, but very, very different life than what I've grown up in America. At 16, she was married and pregnant with my uncle. And my grandfather was probably 23 at the time. He was a little bit older. Surprise, right? Yeah, what a different world, man. I mean, people hear that now, and it's like this, oh my God, 16, pregnant with married and stuff. It's like, no, that was pretty normal back then. And they were married till the day my grandfather died. And then she prayed for that guy. She prayed for my grandfather every night for the next 35 years. Like, it was the level of dedication and intensity to her belief system. This is why I respect guys like Tanner so much. I mean, everybody here has strong belief systems, but Tanner is so devoted to his faith. And I'm not a Mormon, I'm not a Christian, but I really respect that because I've seen it, and I've seen how positive that is, and how, firsthand, my grandmother was a very positive influence in my life. That was, I think, the reason that I turned out different than my little brother and little sister, who my grandma was older and wasn't around for them as much to offset the shitty parenting I got from my family of origin. So yeah, one thing I want to actually shift gears to a little bit, by the way. I did not mention something very important, which is this. Shout out to Steve the Dean Williams and Donovan Sharp, as well as Hunter. You guys actually branched out the show and created multiple shows on the Redman Group, well beyond the original vision of just like a once a week hangout. I mean, it was amazing to see. 21Con's done this as well, but more slowly, because live events are a lot more complex and risky and things like this. And online meetups are, I think, a lot simpler and lower risk. You just meet up on a hangout for free. But it's been amazing to see this. I mean, we've had the Patriarch show, obviously, the Hunter ran with Fatherhood and Fathers. And then we've had, of course, the Red Pill Mindset, Steve the Dean Williams, that goes every Monday, 8 p.m., I believe, Eastern. And then the Red Line we do from time to time, Friday nights. And Steve ran that, Donovan initially ran that, and we'll probably bring that back at some point. But it's been fascinating to see you guys run this, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate the dedication, the effort, and the time and attention you put into that. And that's actually one of my favorite elements of the Redman Group, is that it's not just the Redman Group on Saturdays. It branched out into all these little things, just like 21 Studios has, just like the Manosphere has. So it's like there's multiple layers of splitting off and hiving out into different focuses and topics and show types. It's worthy of its own study at some point, maybe like a book, like I keep mentioning. So, well, guys, this has been fun. We should talk about before we round up, we're at 73 minutes here. I do want to talk about the future of the Redman Group. Let's do that. So for the future, I'll just kick that off. I really want to keep bringing on special guests like I've been doing recently. Janice Fimengo, Richard Grannon, Coach Greg Adams, people like that. They don't always need to be one-on-one, but that's kind of interesting too, to switch up the format rather than a group, just one-on-one like that. And I love that a lot. I think it's a good way to keep the show fresh and not just a panel, to split it or differentiate it like that. And I also want to bring in more guests who are kind of like 21Con. I want to bring in more guests from health and fitness, entrepreneurship, maybe survival elements, things like that. Given what's going on, if it's something super super relevant, or what would you call that? Yeah, it's super relevant for the moment. So I want to tap into the 21 Studios 21 Convention speaker database, so to speak, of you guys. You're a bunch of robots to me. and pulling more guys. I think that'll be really fun, interesting to keep branching out the topics. I still think though that like 21Con, the focus should be male-female relationships, masculinity, and things like that. That seems to be the cornerstone of human life as well as the manosphere and what men need to care about first and foremost. And so the show will always stay, focused on that as a majority, but bringing other stuff like health and fitness, entrepreneurship, finances, it's all good. It's all related to being, at the end of the day, to being a man, to being independent, to being strong, to being masculine, to leading your life, to being the author of your own life. Like Ken talks about authority.
Yes, sir.
You are the author. But if you guys have additional input or criticism of that or some ideas, I'm open for it. The Red Man Group is...
I found for a lot of men is when you help them, a lot of my clients have found this, when their career improves, they become better men. One of my clients says, "Oh yeah, I've been getting these raises at work, and I've been getting more responsibilities. I'm moving into management." And he says, "My workouts are improving. Women are starting to pay attention to me." And he says, "I think it's all because I'm doing better in my career." So I would love to see some guys come on that can help. A lot of young men have no idea how to get up in their career. They don't know how to get ahead. If they don't have a dad to teach them that and demonstrate it, it's not something that is, you don't learn that in school. It'd be great to learn it here.
Fuck yeah. I'm going to type something. Guys, if you want to call in, by the way, I think Steve has a call-ins available. I'm not too sure about that. We'll see. Anyone have additional input or ideas for the show? I'm all ears, man.
Anthony, I just say I'm going to cut out, so get Phil back in here then.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
See you
Thanks
guys later.
Ken.
You bet.
Man.
Take care, Ken.
Oh, shit. Oops. Whatever. Where's Phil? Welcome back, Phil. Chill, Phil.
We need some foster wisdom, man.
Chill. 100%.
Yeah, man. So, yeah, Hunter, I'm happy to bring back the Patriarchs at some point. I know you've had a lot going on this year, but that'd be, I think, pretty dope.
Yeah,
and
it was a great show, and it was well received. A lot of dads are like pretty cool. It's just talking about fatherhood, which is a special demographic. It's just timing. Once I can lock in some free nights, but we're heading into warm weather, man, it gets crazy with baseball and running around and cheerleading. It's fucking nuts. Yeah, assuming everybody's not locked indoors, driving you nuts from coronavirus shit. Dude, they're out there running around. I can hear him right now. He's throwing a ball against the Jeep, the tire in the back, and catching it, and they are shutting it down, though. They're shutting down all their sports, so we'll be training at home. We got a field local. We're not staying in.
Yeah. I like that you bring that up, though. Like, I need to tweet about that. I've been thinking about a thread like that, but I do believe that we saw that bubble up last year, but fatherhood and husbands are a special demographic of the manosphere that don't have a distinct community. But I think one is kind of forming. So there are fathers and husbands throughout, men's rights, PUA stuff, Red Pill, all that stuff. And obviously MGTOW stuff. But
that's the entire basis of what I did. That's the only reason the family alpha was a thing, because nobody was fucking talking about it. And I'm like, guys, this is, let's talk about families. It's not off limits because it's not as flashy or, shiny as game and pickup and all that. That has an element in families. That's a part of being a father.
Yeah.
Well, and frankly, I think that when it comes to speaking about, fathers and families and that type of thing, honestly, I think Drew is probably the number one voice on the internet having that conversation because, again, taking it from that perspective, and again, it's a powerful thing. I mean, I've watched Patriarchy, or the Patriarch show that he ran. I mean, it was a great show. So yeah, I mean, that's an important conversation to have, and it's definitely an underserved population within the manosphere.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I saw with Patriarchs last year. Like we had, at the end of the day, a little more guys than I thought we'd have. But the fact that we even pulled off the event was amazing. I mean, that was the first time in the history of the manosphere community for over 20 years that there was actually an entire event dedicated to fatherhood. I think that was a moment in American history in a sense, because that was the first that I know of fatherhood convention for speaking and speeches and things like that. That wasn't put on by some like a religion or something like that. It wasn't a Christian thing. It wasn't a Muslim thing. It wasn't a Jewish thing. It was all these faiths and races and men coming together talking about fatherhood and masculinity from that perspective and marriage and relationships and all that. And yeah, that was just, like I mentioned last year, it was, fresher on my mind then when it happened, but to see 21Con go from being literally the under 21 convention for young men to the Patriarch edition explicitly for fathers with 100% father speakers was like, it was kind of mind blowing. I mean, just sitting there, walking around, doing the event, it was, for me, it was, physically very similar to 21Con, so I was doing my thing, but yeah, I was like, wow, this is a complete 180 from how we started. You know, mostly focused on game and pickup and self-improvement from that perspective for young guys. And now it's for fathers and fatherhood. Most of the guys there were, the average age was probably like 45 or something like that. Compared to the first one, the average age was probably like 22. So yeah, to see all that shift and keep growing is just awesome, man. And yeah, in the manosphere, it's underserved. And I think at some point, I don't know, you might see like a whole fatherhood, like, you know, group form or something like that. But I don't know. For now, you guys kind of, you populate all the different groups, things like that. And then obviously like individual companies like yours. Ryan Mitchell, too, I think should get a shout out for that. He's another big fatherhood family guy. It's been going for strong for a long time. He's got a huge following too, man. It's wild. Cool. Well, guys, I think I'm going to wrap up for today's show. Going for about 80 minutes here. I need to get going. This has been awesome. I appreciate you guys celebrating here for the 100th edition. I should have had some whiskey on for the show. That would have made it even more fun. But I really appreciate you guys joining the show, and I'll bring back next week. Guys, any closing remarks before I wrap up today's show?
Yeah, man, keep your fucking foot on the gas.
Always, man. Always.
Fuck the shade throwers. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just the shade throwers. It's business too. You know, in life, always just like go.
Yeah, circling around. You know, being your own. I've been in business for myself for a very, very long time. I've had a couple of failed businesses, and they always had partners.
Yeah.
You know, partners in business just do not work. You know, Hunter's an exception to the rule. Him and Craig are running the fraternity and whatnot together, and it's interesting to watch that work out. But generally, in my experience, you know, partnerships, nah.
Yep. No, I've heard that, dude, so many times from attorneys and CPAs and other entrepreneurs too. Like it's a very notorious stereotype, and I believe it.
There can only be one captain at the helm. You know what I mean? This is it. This is just one.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I mean, I ended up, you know, partnership, it almost blew up, but I kept it alive. And, you know, Rich Cooper was the saving grace on that. You know, he didn't have to sell to me, but he did. And I remember last year, I would joke on Twitter. I was like, thanks, Rich Cooper, for keeping Redman Group alive. Because he shifted the power from being a voting company to, well, I would vote, but I voted, of course, for myself, you know, with control of the company. So, yeah, I think that's what saved it. It gave someone the ability to steer the company in a positive direction. And then eventually that came to that split with Rollo, which I think we're seeing throughout the manosphere, even beyond me and Rollo and all that shit. You see that on all these the forums and things like that. Yeah,
I think
good stuff.
I think kind of to switch gears and kind of as far as closing remarks are concerned, you know, I think that this coronavirus thing, I think the hype train is right now more dangerous than the actual virus itself. And I think the civil unrest that it's causing because of, you know, a lot of just irrational fear, I think, is huge. I'm not saying discount the virus itself. Obviously, take care of yourself. But it's interesting because, you know, a lot of people don't have a lot of savings. You know, they have an instant gratification, disposable lifestyle. Those are going to be the people who get hurt. The people that don't have multiple streams of income, the people who aren't thinking about their finances, you know, unhealthy lifestyle, they're going to suffer. And really, the sad part about it, and I say that as kind of a backhanded statement, but the sad part about it is that, you know, with the schools closing, a lot of single mothers have just lost their daycare. So it's going to create a lot of natural consequences for them.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then, and really what it does is it really points out the feminist lie that, you know, these women are like, oh, you can have it all and you can do everything. And then all of a sudden reality sets in, and let's be real. It'll be men who guide us out of this situation. It'll be, you know, strong men. It'll be alpha men. It'll be leaders who guide us out of this situation. It's not going to be the feminists. The feminists have no solutions, you know. I mean, and again, you're gonna watch all these people lose their minds because they live these disposable, instant gratification lifestyles. And so, you know, while the coronavirus, everybody should definitely take it seriously. I'll tell you what, it's going to be an interesting case study in failed policies and, you know, failed liberal leadership.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man, 100%. Particularly with your analysis of like it's serious, but the hysteria is still overblown. And I think a lot of people have lost. Some people are still like in the, you know, it's just a flu category, and I'm like, dude, I don't think that's the case. But also, it's not the end of the world, and keep a level head. That's a really important. You mentioned too, you had single mothers. I mean, that's a big issue. I'll be investigating personally in the coming weeks, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, the rebound effect is going to be great.
Yeah. I know a lot of single moms. Central Florida in general has just like tons and tons of single moms, and honestly, like that's some of the hottest women around. I think that's how they ended up single moms. You know, somebody didn't pull out basically, and given how hot they were. I mean, because you should still blame them, but it's like, I get it. Yeah. Well, guys, thanks for joining me on today's show. We'll close out with a little boom screen grab. Episode 100, guys. Redman Group has been published to over 1 million people through YouTube channels. We've had millions of views on it, and 100 episodes, over 100 episodes technically. But this is episode 100. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I appreciate you guys joining me today. Of course, Phil, Noah, Ken Curry was on earlier, DDJ, Hunter Drew, Steve the Dean. It's been awesome, guys. I look forward to doing many more episodes, at least another 100, maybe beyond that. It'll take time, one a week, so we'll see how it goes, and then we'll keep adding in different shows and things like that over time. Very exciting future for the Manosphere and the Redman Group, man. Good stuff on the way. Everyone else, appreciate you tuning in live. I'll see you next Saturday at 11 a.m. sharp. Stay tuned tomorrow if you're a fan of 21 Convention or if you're an attendee. We're making announcements regarding the coronavirus situation as far as the events go and things like that. Everyone else, tune in for the live show next Saturday, as well as for the Redman or the Red Pill Mindset Monday nights at 8 p.m. with Steve the Dean. And check out, later this year, most likely you'll see the return of the Patriarch show and maybe the Redliners too. The Redline on Friday nights. Peace out, and I appreciate you guys supporting the show.